You gain control of J.K. Rowling's Twitter account for a day. What unnecessary piece of information do you add to Harry Potter lore? Witches and wizards have microscopic beings called magi-chlorians that live within their bodies which grant them access to magic. In the same vein, Harry no longer employs house elves, he's found other helpers. Here comes one right now. Mesa bussin' wid happiness seein' yousa again, Harry. Shessa happy. Happier den Mesa seein' her in a longo time. Voldemort was voluntarily circumcised at the age of 18. His reasoning is that snakes don't have hoods. Sectum sempra. Hagrid shaves all his body hair from the neck down. Alternately, Hagrid has no hair from the neck down, and he doesn't need to shave. He's just totally smooth. Like a porpoise. After Book 2 and the Polyjuice experiments, Ron and Hermione permanently switched places. Blimey, Hermione. After Book 2, Ron and Hermione used each other's DNA to turn into each other and then have freaky body swap sex. Hagrid tried faux and didn't really care for it. This is so delightfully pointless. I love it. And then says I should not have said that. Voldemort doesn't have a butthole after resurrection. He's like a smooth Ken doll down there. Well, there goes all of my fanfic. I don't think I could top the post she made about wizards disappearing their poo with magic before muggles invented toilets. We know they were apparating it from the inside. Where it landed, nobody knows. But it probably gained sentience and mutated into a creature that only Hagrid could love. There's a witch writer called K.J. Lowering, famous for her Muggle book series Harold Rogers, where the protagonist engages in wacky Muggle adventures, with sidekicks Roberta Beasley and Herman Danger. Isn't it in the books that there actually is a book series about a Muggle? Called Michael the Mad Muggle or something stupid like that. I'm sure I recall this. The My Immortal fanfic is now 100% canon, thank you. J.K.R. The preps will not be happy about this. Just Googled this and skimmed the first page before noping out. There's such a thing as too much cringe. Fred and George Weasley switched places during the Battle of Hogwarts. When George died, Fred adopted George's life, complete with cutting off his ear, because he figured George wouldn't want him to spoil the joke. Makes sense as to why George ended up marrying Angelina Johnson when it was Fred who dated her at Hogwarts. You monster, why would you make everyone cry like that? That most people don't play beyond their early 20s because they develop Quidditch, asshole. Every so often a player has to retire because a snitch goes somewhere where you don't usually want a vibrating golden orb, and frankly Therese no returning from that ignominy. Every so often a player has to retire because a snitch goes somewhere where you don't usually want a vibrating golden orb, and frankly Therese no returning from that ignominy. That the Queen of England is a living Horcrux and that's why she just won't die. Okay, this one is the best. She made herself a Horcrux as well as Prince Philip, and she is now the most powerful witch in all of Europe. You've just made my day. Thank you. The protagonist was actually the flying car and everything after is just epilogue. Harry Potter is Cars 3. Ka-chow, expecto petroleum. The flying car only appeared in Book 2, so was everything before just a prologue? Muggle orphanages know about magic, and when an orphan shows magical prowess they phone the Ministry of Magic for pickup and leave the baby outside. The ministry hasn't figured out how voicemail works and never come to pick up the children. Well, this explains why the White Walkers keep sparing the orphanages. The Forbidden Forest is forbidden because Dumbledore and Hagrid have an illegal grow-op hidden inside. The Wizarding School is a front to launder money. I thought they got high-smoking unicorn horn. You're a dealer, Harry. Hagrid was a metaphor for the misunderstanding and mistreatment of furries. This is the best, worst response to this question. You bastard. George Weasley was adopted. Not Fred though. One of my favorite quotes from any piece of Harry Potter media comes from an interview of the actors who played Fred and George. So are you two actually twins in real life? No, it's funny. We actually met at the audition. That line kills me every time. I'd clarify that Dumbledore wasn't really gay, just gay for pay. Figure that way, nobody is happy. A gag for a galleon, Dumbledore? I'm writing a new book. I'll make her add a lot more lore by bumping community expectations. Well, technically she is, just not HP. She's currently writing a crime novel, which should have released last year. The sock that freed Dobby was actually a Potter family heirloom, having been worn by Bobby Charlton in the 1966 FIFA World Cup final. The Potters were very quiet about how they came to acquire it. For some strange reason, this one is my favorite of all. Also, why do you need two sheds? Harry pronounces it GIF, not GIF. G as in GIF? What a fucking monster. Harry put his name in the Goblet of Fire, And the portion of Voldemort's soul in him allowed him to do so because it was old enough. How do you know? Did you ask him calmly? Harry doesn't have a left pinky toe. It was the only part of him hurt by the killing curse when he was a baby. And then all of us fan theorists will wonder why Lily didn't love his left pinky toe. Now that you mention it, why didn't Lily love the lightning bolt-shaped patch of skin on Harry's forehead? The Loch Ness Monster is someone who tried Polyjuice Potion with basilisk DNA. Actually, the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them textbook from the Hogwarts library set, not the screenplay, specifies that the Loch Ness Monster was a Kelpie, I think. It may have been one of the other creatures. Snape was a never nude. There are dozens of them. I think I just blew myself. Hermione was actually a collective delusion shared by Harry and Ron, and Crumb went with it because he's hugely unstable. There is a Wizarding World version of Magic, the Gathering called Muggles, the Congregation. I'll tap 3 to play my Planewalker, Gavin the accountant triggering the effect off my Derek from HR adding 1+1/+1 counter to every office worker on the battlefield. I end my turn. Ron likes to take all his clothes off when he poops. Oddly enough, I have a friend who's been compared to Ron many times who also does this. Not gonna lie, I do too when given the chance. Harry frequently entered the girls' dormitory. How did he defeat the staircases that turned into ramps? It's the most impenetrable security system ever invented. Just think, if only Gringotts had used ramp staircases. What else are you supposed to do with an invisibility cloak and the Marauder's map? Snape was a stamp collector. This is the real reason James Potter bullied him. It was really him and not the Weasleys who wrote and mailed the letter inviting him to the Quidditch World Cup. All those stamps on the envelope were his way getting back at James. You would just need to make it sound dirty. James Potter picked on Snape due to his constant filleting in public. Too many people will be too lazy to Google and ting it was something indecent. I would make it clear that The Cursed Child is not canon. Go one step further and declare it as an in-universe book written by Rita Skeeter. And the sigh of relief has swept through the diner. People were ecstatic. It was like the liberation of France. Professor Snape was a single mother. Hermione's in a wheelchair. Voldemort's parents were anti-vax. That wouldn't rile anyone up. Now if you said that Ron and Hermione were anti-vaccination. Hogwarts in the 60s was a drug-fueled Technicolor dancing orgy every night, and the only reason it doesn't come up more often is because not a lot of people clearly remember it. That must be when Dumbledore made the switch from sharp-looking suits to colorful flowy robes. The Sorting Hat was %100 unnecessary for class distribution. Its primary purpose was to get rid of head lice. I've got a secret affliction, Harry. When you're using the invisible cloak, you're not actually invisible, you're naked. They just choose to ignore you as to not make things awkward. That explains why Fudge and Malfoy send Hagrid straight to Azkaban without a trial in Book 2 when they walk into Hagrid's hut while Harry and Ron are hiding. That sounds like a pretty British way of handling things to me. Teenage wizards would jack off in front of the hottest moving paintings. The fat lady isn't fat, just repeatedly pregnant. They say Filch's very first task at Hogwarts was to remove semen from the portrait of one particularly beautiful lady on the 5th floor. And that's why he hated teens ever since.